Destiny Wright had built her entire career on one very simple principle. If you break the law in her jurisdiction, she will find you, build an airtight case against you, and she will not stop until a judge reads your sentence out loud in open court. She had a conviction rate of 94%. The Chicago Tribune had called her the most dangerous prosecutor the Midwest has ever seen. She was 32 years old, black, brilliant, and she had absolutely zero patience for criminals who thought power made them untouchable. The Sato family had controlled organized crime across Chicago, Milwaukee, and Detroit for 3 generations. They ran everything: pharmaceutical distribution networks, high-end counterfeit operations, underground gambling rings, protection rackets that stretched from the South Side all the way to the Canadian border. They were Japanese-American, 4th-generation immigrants who had built an empire in the shadows while their legitimate businesses, restaurants, real estate firms, import companies, operated in plain sight. The head of the family was a man named Ray Sato, 41 years old, ruthless and methodical. His younger brother Miles ran enforcement, the violent side of things that Ray preferred not to see directly. And then there was Ken Sato, the middle brother, 34, who managed the family's financial operations with the kind of quiet precision that made federal investigators lose sleep. Destiny had spent 2 years building a RICO case against the entire Sato organization. 2 years of wiretaps, financial forensics, flipped witnesses, late nights in her office with case files spread across every available surface. And when she finally walked into that Chicago federal courtroom with a file 3 inches thick, she did not just have evidence, she had everything. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Ray Sato got 25 years. Miles got 18. And Ken Sato, the one who had managed the money, the one whose spreadsheets and offshore routing had kept the whole machine running, got 15 years in a federal prison 2 hours outside Chicago. Destiny stood in that courtroom and watched the bailiffs take them away in handcuffs, and she felt what she always felt when a case closed: relief, exhaustion, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had done exactly what she was supposed to do. What she did not know, what she could not have known, was that she had just made herself the primary target of every person who had ever owed the Sato family a favor. If this already has you hooked, please subscribe and hit the bell. New stories drop weekly. 3 months after the Sato convictions, Destiny started noticing things. Small things at first: a car that appeared behind her on 2 separate routes home from work, a man in a coffee shop who left 30 seconds after she did, an envelope slipped under her apartment door with no return address, containing a single photograph of her walking into her building. No note, just the photo. She reported it to Agent Cole, the federal task force leader who had worked the Sato case with her. He assigned her a protective detail, 2 agents, rotating shifts, 24-hour coverage, standard protocol for prosecutors who had put away high-value organized crime targets. What Destiny did not know was that one of those agents, a man named Marcus who had been her partner on 3 prior cases and who she had trusted completely, had been on the Sato payroll for 7 years. Marcus was the kind of dirty cop who had learned how to survive by being useful to both sides. He fed the Satos just enough federal intelligence to keep himself valuable, and he fed the feds just enough low-level arrests to keep his record clean. He was careful, he was patient, and when Ray Sato, now in a federal prison but still very much in control of his network from the inside, sent word that Destiny Wright needed to be dealt with, Marcus was the one who volunteered to handle it quietly. The plan was simple. Marcus would take the night shift. He would wait until Destiny was alone in her apartment. He would make it look like a break-in gone wrong, quick, clean, no federal investigation that could trace back to the Satos. Ray had promised him $200,000 and a clean exit from Chicago. Marcus had already picked the city he was going to disappear to. What Marcus did not know, what Ray Sato did not know, what no one in the entire Sato network knew, was that Ken Sato had spent the last 3 months in federal prison doing something no one expected. He had been watching Destiny. Ken Sato had every reason to hate Destiny Wright. She had destroyed his family. She had taken 15 years of his life and locked them inside a 6-by-8-foot cell in a place where every single day felt exactly the same as the one before it. She had stood in that courtroom and delivered a closing argument so airtight that his own defense attorney had leaned over halfway through and whispered, "We should take the plea deal." But Ken did not hate her. He respected her in a way that he had never respected another person in his entire life. She had done her job with a level of precision and integrity that he recognized, because he had spent his entire career doing the exact opposite: bending systems, finding gaps, exploiting weaknesses. She had outmaneuvered him completely. and she had done it without cutting a single corner. And then, 1 month into his sentence, he overheard a conversation in the prison yard. Two men connected to a rival organization talking quietly near the weights. One of them mentioned Destiny's name. The other one laughed and said, "Ray's people are going to handle that. She won't last till Christmas." Ken stopped mid-rep and set the barbell down very carefully. He walked back to his cell, and he sat on his bunk for a long time, staring at nothing, thinking about a woman who had sent him to prison and who was now going to die because of it. He made a decision that night that would cost him everything he had left. He was going to get out, and he was going to save her. Federal prisons are not easy to escape from. They are built specifically to hold people who have the resources, intelligence, and motivation to try. But Ken had 3 things working in his favor. He was patient, he understood systems, and he had spent 20 years learning how to exploit the space between what people said and what they actually did. He studied the guard rotations for 6 weeks. He noticed that the night transfer protocols, the procedures for moving inmates between facilities for medical or legal reasons, had a 40-minute window every Tuesday and Thursday, where 2 guards handled paperwork in a separate building, leaving the transport van attended by a single officer who was usually on his phone. Ken filed a motion for a medical evaluation at a civilian hospital, a legitimate request that his attorney pushed through without suspecting anything. The date was approved for a Thursday. Ken waited. The escape itself took less than 9 minutes. He incapacitated the transport officer with a move his younger brother Miles had taught him when they were teenagers. Fast, quiet, non-lethal. He took the officer's radio, cuffed him to the van, and walked out of the hospital loading bay in stolen scrubs like he belonged there. By the time the alarm went up, he was already on a city bus heading toward Chicago with a prepaid phone. $800 in cash he had hidden in a dead drop outside the prison 6 months earlier, and exactly one goal: find Destiny Wright, keep her alive. Destiny was alone in her apartment when her phone rang at 11:47 p.m. It was Agent Cole. His voice was tight in a way she had never heard before. Ken Sato escaped from federal custody 4 hours ago. He said, "We believe he's heading to Chicago. I'm sending a team to your location now. Do not open your door for anyone until they arrive." She hung up. Her hands were steady, but her mind was moving fast. Ken Sato had escaped. He was coming to Chicago, and the only reason a man escapes federal prison and heads toward the prosecutor who put him there is revenge. She checked her weapon, a Glock 19 she kept in her nightstand, fully loaded. She moved to the living room where she had a clear line of sight to the front door. She turned off the lights. She waited. What she did not know was that Marcus, her trusted former partner, the man assigned to protect her, was already inside the building. He had used his federal credentials to bypass building security 20 minutes earlier. He was now standing outside her apartment door with a suppressed pistol and a key he had copied from the building manager 3 weeks ago. Marcus slid the key into the lock, turned it slowly, pushed the door open. Destiny raised her weapon, finger on the trigger, ready. And then a voice came from the hallway behind Marcus, calm, quiet, and absolutely certain. "Step away from the door, Marcus." Marcus spun. Ken Sato was standing 15 feet behind him in the hallway. No weapon visible, hands at his sides. He looked thinner than he had in the courtroom. Tired, but his eyes were completely clear. "Ken," Marcus said, and his brain was trying to process how this was possible. How Ken had found him, how Ken even knew. "What are you?" "I know Ray sent you," Ken said. "I know you've been on the payroll for years, and I know you're about to walk into that apartment and kill the only person in this entire situation who actually did her job correctly." Marcus raised his pistol. Ken did not move. "If you shoot me," Ken said, "she hears it. She calls it in. You don't have time to finish and get out. You lose everything." Marcus hesitated. That hesitation was all Ken needed. Ken moved fast, faster than Marcus expected from someone who had just escaped a federal prison and crossed 2 states in 4 hours. He closed the distance, knocked the gun to the side, and put Marcus on the ground with the kind of controlled violence that comes from years of enforcement work. The pistol skittered across the hallway floor. Destiny heard the sound. She moved to the door, weapon raised, and pulled it open. She saw Ken Sato kneeling over Marcus with one knee pressed into his back, both hands controlling his arms. She saw the suppressed pistol on the floor. She saw the picture immediately, the picture she had been trained to see. Ken looked up at her. He did not try to run. He did not reach for the weapon. He just looked at her with the exhausted calm of someone who has already made every decision they are going to make. "He was sent to kill you," Ken said. "Ray organized it from inside. Marcus is dirty, has been for years." He paused. I got out because I heard the contract go live a month ago, and I knew no one else was going to stop it in time. Destiny kept her weapon trained on him. Her mind was running the calculation: escaped convict, organized crime family. A story that sounded insane, and also sounded exactly true in the way that insane, true things often do. Why, she said. Because you did your job, Ken said simply, and you didn't deserve to die for it. Agent Cole and his team arrived 6 minutes later. They found Marcus in federal custody, restraints that Ken had taken off the knocked-out transport officer 4 hours earlier, a suppressed weapon on the floor, and Ken Sato sitting against the hallway wall with his hands visible, and his head tipped back against the paint like a man who had just run the longest race of his life and was fine with not running another one. Marcus confessed to everything within 48 hours. He gave them Ray Sato's Inside Communications Network, the names of 4 other compromised federal agents, and detailed records of every payment he had received over 7 years. In exchange for full cooperation, he got 15 years, the exact sentence Ken had originally received. Ken went back to federal custody, but this time the case was different. His attorney, a sharp woman named Caroline Chen, who specialized in post-conviction relief, filed an emergency motion citing his material, assistance in preventing a federal murder for hire, his voluntary surrender, and the fact that his original sentence had been based partially on testimony from a now-discredited federal witness. The judge reduced his sentence to 8 years with credit for time served. With good behavior, he would be out in 4. Destiny testified at his sentencing hearing. She told the court that Ken Sato had saved her life at significant personal cost, and that while she did not regret prosecuting him, she believed the system owed him recognition for what he had done. She was careful, she was precise. She did not say anything she did not mean. Ken looked at her once during that testimony. She looked back. Something passed between them that had no name and no future. But it was real, and they both knew it. 4 years later, Destiny was leaving her office late on a Wednesday when she saw a man standing near her car in the parking garage. She reached for her weapon instinctively, old habits, and then stopped. It was Ken. He looked older, calmer. He was wearing a plain jacket, and he had a backpack over one shoulder like someone who had just gotten off a long flight. "They let you out early," she said. "Good behavior," he said. There was the smallest hint of a smile at the edge of his mouth. They stood there for a moment in the fluorescent parking garage light, 2 people who had destroyed and saved each other in ways that most people would never understand. "I'm not going back to the family," Ken said. "I'm done with that. I just wanted you to know." "Where are you going?" she asked. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said something she had not planned to say, something that came out before she could stop it. "There's a halfway house on the north side that helps people reintegrate. I know the director. I could make a call." He looked at her, surprised. "You don't owe me that," he said. "I know," she said. "But you didn't owe me my life either, so I guess we're even." He nodded slowly, and then he did something that surprised both of them. He smiled, a real one, the kind that people give when they're genuinely grateful and don't have the words for it. "Thank you, Destiny," he said. She nodded, unlocked her car, got in, started the engine, and as she pulled out of the parking garage, she looked in her rearview mirror and saw him still standing there, watching her leave, and she thought about all the ways 2 people can save each other without ever really belonging to each other. She thought about it for a long time, and then she drove home, and she let it go, because some stories do not end with people together. Some stories end with people free, and sometimes that is the better ending.